I think the one I enjoyed reading more than anything.
Have you ever read a story that stayed in your mind for a very long time because it felt so important and so quiet all at once? I think the one I enjoyed reading more than anything else was the story of what happened inside the big stone walls of the palace on a very special and very quiet day. Usually when big things happen in the world, people shout and make a lot of noise. They run around and get very excited. But on this day, the big room in the palace was very, very quiet. No one yelled, no one moved an inch. Everyone just stood there and waited. It was a kind of silence that felt heavy, like a thick, warm blanket that makes it hard to breathe. King Charles had just made a very big and very hard choice about his wife, Queen Camilla. This choice was about her crown and what her job would be in the future years. When he spoke his final words, the silence in the room became more painful than a big public fight or a loud scandal in the newspapers. Just one sentence changed who had all the power inside the royal family. Camilla had spent a very, very long time trying to get people to like her. She had worked hard for many years to be accepted by the family and the people in the country. But suddenly she was looking at a future that was much smaller and much more limited than she expected. She thought her place was safe and sound, but now she found out it was not. Before we talk more about what this really means for the royal family, please make sure to hit the subscribe button so you do not miss a single update on the secret things that happen behind palace walls. These are the hidden forces that change who sits on the throne and how the world sees them. Camilla did not move at all when she heard the news. She sat very still in her chair. Her back was as straight as a tall wooden board. She did not let her face show any of the sadness or anger she felt deep inside. She kept her face looking very calm and very controlled, almost like a mask made of stone. Her fingers were squeezed very tightly around the edge of her wooden chair. The wood was shiny and smooth, and she held onto it as if it were the only thing in the whole world stopping her from falling over. Across from her sat King Charles. On the table near his hand was a blue folder. It was closed and sealed with a special stamp, which meant the papers inside were very important and very secret. Charles did not look like a powerful king giving an order. Instead, he looked like a sad husband who had to tell his wife something that made him feel very bad inside. He looked like he had been thinking about this for a long time in private. The crown roll is a way of saying all the special jobs, influence, and power a queen has while she is by the king's side. Charles told her that her job would now be much smaller in clear words. She would still be called the queen consort, which is the title for the king's wife, but she would not have power over the things that happen later. She would not get to help choose the charities the family supports. She would not get to make choices about how the palace is run, and she would not have a big part in the ceremonies when the next king takes over. Charles understood why these specific words were so important. He knew that the royal household is a very big and very busy group of people. It is the team of helpers and workers who take care of the palace, the staff, the big parties, the church services, and all the work the family does for the public. Charles felt that the monarchy needed to have one very clear line of power. He wanted to make sure everything was organized and simple before the next chapter of the family history began. People inside the room called this choice the final settlement. That name made it sound like a finished deal that could never be changed by anyone. It meant that people would respect her power right now, but she would not be allowed to have control over things that happen far in the future. Camilla heard that phrase and she knew what it really meant. She felt the coldness hidden deep inside those words. A final settlement is not a conversation. It is not something you can talk about or try to change later over a nice meal. It was not something they could fix while having dinner together. She had lived through a lot of hard times. For years, people said mean things about her in the news. She had lived in the shadow of the people who came before her. She had been very loyal to the king for a long time, but now she realized that loyalty could still end when a door was closed. For one very short moment, Charles did not look at her eyes. That 1 second of looking away told Camilla everything she needed to know. It was more powerful than a long speech. He did not look happy or like he had won a fight. He just looked very, very tired. He had already read all the papers in the secret folder. He had already listened to all the warnings from his helpers. He had already accepted that he could not change the future just to make his wife feel better today. The secret folder had been brought into the room very quietly earlier that day. No one made a big deal about it, but the air in the room changed when it arrived. The papers inside showed the pressure that Charles could not ignore anymore. Then a name was spoken that felt like a second punch to the heart. That name was William. Prince William was not even in the room while they were talking, but even though he was not there, his power was felt everywhere. The man who will be the next king had already helped make the choice before Camilla ever heard a single word about it. When the meeting was finally over, Camilla stood up very slowly. She is the queen consort and she did not beg for him to change his mind. She did not ask for mercy. She looked at Charles just one time. She looked at him long enough to make sure he saw how much she was hurting inside. Then she turned around and walked toward the door with the careful dignity of someone refusing to cry. But the news was only the start of the trouble. The real pain was waiting for her behind the next set of palace doors. That was where she would find out which people had agreed with the king's choice. She would find out who stayed quiet and did not help her. She would find out who had secretly worked to make sure this choice could never be turned back. Every big problem in the royal family has a story that people read in the news, but the real hurt happens in private, where you can see it on people's faces. Charles felt the heavy weight of being the boss. Camilla felt the sharp sting of being told she was not important enough for the future. William was quiet, but he was holding the future in his hands. Catherine was very calm, and her calmness made other people feel worried. In that one moment, every person was standing at the edge of a high cliff. They all knew that if someone said the wrong thing, the whole family could break apart and never be fixed. Charles knew that this was not just a sad fight between a husband and a wife. He saw the crown role issue as something that affected whether the monarchy would survive or fail. The monarchy is the royal system that keeps traditions alive. It is about duty, ceremonies, succession, and the trust people have in the family. The king felt that the system could not afford to have any confusion at the very top. He knew that if there were two different people trying to lead during future events, everyone would notice. People would look at every move they made. They would ask why someone was sitting in a certain chair. Every time someone stayed silent, people would make up a story about it. That is why the choice was so painful. It was not because Camilla had done anything wrong. She had not failed him at all. The choice was made because the crown demanded that everything be in order. The crown is bigger than any one person, and it has its own rules that must be followed to keep things working. Camilla felt the meanness of that logic more than anyone else in the room. She really believed that all her years of being by Charles's side had earned her more than just respect for today. She thought she had earned a permanent place in the big ceremonies of the future. She had lived through so many storms. She had stayed strong when people were angry at her. She had worked for a very long time to make people think better of her. To her, a ceremonial role was not just a fancy job or a pretty dress. A ceremonial role means the special duties and honors a person gets at big royal events. To her, it was the final proof that she had been accepted as part of the family for good. So when Charles said she would not have that future, she did not hear a new rule about palace business. What she heard was that she was being pushed away. She felt rejected by the person she loved most. William felt a different kind of pain in his heart. The prince loved and respected his father very much. He knew that Charles had worked very hard to protect Camilla for a long time, even when it was difficult. But William was also worried. He was afraid that if Camilla had too much power, it would make things very messy for him and Catherine later. They are the ones who will inherit the throne one day. The future king was not looking for a fight. He was just trying to stop a fight from happening later. He understood that if his time as king started with a lot of confusion about who was in charge, it would be bad for everyone. He did not want Catherine to be forced into a job where she had to compete with old promises made to other people. He wanted the path to be clear for his wife when her turn came to be the leader. Catherine stayed very calm, but her quietness made Camilla feel uneasy. Catherine had seen a lot of sadness in the palace over the years. She knew how words that sound nice can still hurt a person's life. Behind the closed doors, the princess understood how hard it was for a woman to be quietly told her job was being limited by official rules. But she also knew why the line had to be drawn. Charles had been told in secret that having too many people with big roles would cause big problems. It would be confusing during ceremonies and when working with charities. A patronage is when a royal family member supports a charity. It is a very big deal and gives that person a lot of power. Camilla noticed that Catherine did not look surprised by the news at all. That made her feel even worse than the choice itself. The queen consort looked at Catherine and realized that the future had already been talked about when she was not there. Charles had said the words, but William had planned the path, and Catherine had agreed with where they were going. Hi viewers, do you think King Charles made the right choice by limiting Queen Camilla's future power? I want to know what you think. Please write a simple yes or no in the comments right now. This is a big question that a lot of people are talking about. After that moment in the room, the question changed. People wondered if this was really just about the rules. Or was there a secret event that the palace had hidden from everyone until now? To understand why Charles finally made this choice, we have to look back at one specific moment that changed everything. The palace did not get to this breaking point in just one day. The choice actually started months ago. It did not happen in a big meeting room or a news report. It happened inside a place called Windsor Chapel after a private service to remember someone who had passed away. It was there in a quiet corner of the church that Camilla asked for one thing too many. In that moment, Charles saw very clearly that love and power could not always live in the same crown. Camilla went into the chapel that day thinking she just needed to be told everything was okay. She had been with Charles through many hard years. In her mind, the worst part of her life was already over. She thought people had stopped judging her so harshly. But after the service was finished, she moved close to the king. She asked him for something that made the air between them feel cold and tight. Windsor Chapel is a very special place where the royal family goes to pray. It is used for very personal things like saying goodbye to family members who have died. It is a place of memory and duty. But on that day, it became the place where a secret fight finally started to show. She asked Charles to promise that she would always have a high place of importance. She wanted to be the most important woman at big royal events, even after Charles was no longer the king. This is called ceremonial precedence. It means where you stand and how important you are compared to everyone else. Charles did not hear the request the way Camilla wanted him to. She thought she was just asking to feel safe. She wanted a paper that said her years of hard work would not be forgotten. She wanted to know that when the next chapter of the family started, she would still matter. But Charles heard something else. He heard a demand that would cause problems for William's future. He heard something that would get in the way of Catherine's place as the next queen. That was why that moment in the chapel was so important. It was not about making someone feel comfortable anymore. It was about whether one king can make promises that the next king has to keep. The king looked at her for a long time. The warm feeling they usually had between them seemed to disappear. It was replaced by something cold and official. It felt like a warning of danger. William saw the change in his father before anyone else said a word. The prince was standing nearby with Catherine. They were getting ready to leave with the palace helpers. William saw Charles's face get very tight. He knew that look very well. Catherine moved a little closer to William. She did not do it in a loud way, and she did not panic. She just had a gut feeling that something bad was happening. She understood palace danger before anyone even put a name to it. She knew this was not just a normal talk between a husband and a wife. The princess understood that the rules they made now would change how power worked for many years. Royal guidance is the name for the written rules about who does what in the family. If those rules were written in a certain way, they could make one person's power last forever. Camilla kept asking for what she wanted, and that was the spark that started the fire. She wanted her job to be protected in the written rules even when William became the king. She did not sound angry, but her need was very clear to everyone there. Charles did not answer her. He just put his prayer book down very carefully. That small action felt louder than if he had yelled across the room. The king ended the talk without giving her what she wanted. It was very quiet as they walked out of the chapel. William did not say much, but he had seen enough to know what was happening. Catherine stayed right by his side. She knew that a line had been crossed. From that day on, the palace helpers started to look at the rules. The choice that would later break Camilla's heart was now almost certain to happen. When the reports were finally ready, Camilla did not want to hear the news from a helper. She did not want an explanation from a secretary. She demanded to hear the truth from Charles himself. The big talk happened behind closed doors. There were no assistants or advisors there to make the words sound nicer. Camilla wanted Charles to say it to her face. She wanted to know if the man who had defended her for 40 years was now the person cutting her away from the future of the crown. When the door shut, the marriage and the monarchy finally crashed into each other. Camilla had asked for this meeting herself. She had heard that the rules about her job were now final. She did not want a message delivered by a staff member. She did not want fancy words or quiet excuses. The queen consort wanted to look at Charles and have no one else in the way. Her crown role had already been made smaller on paper. Now she needed to know if the king actually believed in those rules. Did he want this, or did he just let other people write the rules for him? Charles knew this was a very dangerous meeting. He understood that it was not just about royal business. It was about their marriage. He sat very still with his hands on the desk. He was very careful about how he breathed and what he said. He knew that in this room, one wrong word could feel like he was betraying his wife, but he also knew that one soft promise could make the whole monarchy look weak. Camilla looked at him and asked if her loyalty meant nothing at all. That question was very hard to hear. She had stayed with him when the whole world was angry. She had been judged for years. She had been treated like a shadow in a story that would not forgive her. Now she wanted to know if all that hard work ended with her being told she was no longer important. Charles did not answer right away. The room was so quiet it started to hurt. That silence hurt her more than if he had been angry. Finally, the king said that the monarchy could not be changed just to make one person feel better. He did not say it in a mean way, which actually made it feel worse. His voice sounded like it might break because he was trying so hard to be strong. Camilla's face changed as she listened. At first, she was heartbroken. Then she could not believe what she was hearing. Finally, she became very cold. She expected to be sad, but she did not expect him to be so sure about his choice. Charles then told her the truth about what was happening. He said that William had not forced him to do anything, but the prince had made his feelings very clear. The next time someone wears the crown, they need to be the only person in charge. A future reign is the time when the next king rules. That time cannot start with people being confused about who is the boss. Charles explained that the ceremonies and the jobs in the palace have to look forward to the future, not backward to the past. Camilla understood what he meant immediately. William had not yelled or made big demands. He had simply drawn a line in the sand, and Charles had decided to stay on William's side of that line. Camilla realized that this choice was not just for a little while, it was forever. It would not go away when the news stopped talking about it. The written order would stay the same. The queen consort would be respected, but she was now locked inside a small box of rules. Charles put his pen down with a quiet sound. That sound meant the talk was over. Once he stopped talking like a husband and started talking like a king, there was nothing else she could do. He refused to look her in the eye. Then he said the name that felt like a heavy blow. It was the name of the one person who was not there, but who had planned everything before she ever walked into the room. The silence followed them out of the chapel, but it was a tricky kind of quiet. It was the kind of heavy stillness you feel right before a big building falls down. William did not say much as they walked through the old stone hallways. He had seen enough. Catherine stayed close to him. Their steps matched perfectly. She knew for sure that the line between family feelings and the job of being king had been crossed. In the church, Camilla had tried to get a guarantee that her power would last forever. She wanted a written anchor to keep her important in a future that did not belong to her. She wanted her job protected in written palace guidance. These are the official rules that everyone has to follow for a long time. She wanted to stay important forever. Instead, she got a closed door. The trouble started before they even got into their cars to go home. William did not wait for things to calm down. He did not act like it was just a small fight over dinner. He felt the stakes were way too high. He remembered the trouble the family had in the past, and he did not want that to happen again. A secret look passed between him and the king's helper. They started a secret plan. Within hours, they were looking at all the legal rules of Camilla's job. Camilla went back to her room and did not know what was happening. She thought the talk in the chapel was just a test of loyalty. She thought it was a private talk between a husband and wife. She thought she was just getting a bit of safety for her future. She did not want her hard work to be erased when Charles was no longer king. But the palace does not care about feelings. It works with cold logic. The secret review happened very fast. They looked at old rules and budgets. They looked at how the next generation would handle big events. They found that if Camilla had too much power, it would cause big problems. It would create two different centers of power. For a family that wants to look stable, that would be a disaster. The report was put into a folder with a blue wax seal. It meant she was being pushed out. As the days went by, the palace changed in ways you could feel but not see. People who wanted Camilla's help before started to go to other people. Meetings were postponed. They said it was because of scheduling, but it was really because they were waiting for the king's final word. Camilla is very smart, and she noticed the change. She saw how her staff looked at her. She noticed how conversations stopped when she walked in. The feeling of being safe was starting to break. William watched all of this from a distance. He knew that if he was mean to her, people would be mad. He stayed professional. He said it was all about the survival of the crown. He met with Charles in his office. He showed him the report. He did not yell. He just showed the facts. He said the family needed to be modern. There could be no confusion when the next era began. Catherine was very helpful during this time. She kept things from getting too emotional. She knew how the palace could be mean with its official words. She knew how it felt to be watched by people in suits. But she was loyal to her husband and her children. She knew that if the top of the family was too crowded, it would be bad for her later. She wanted her own role to be clear. Her calm face was part of her plan. She knew the tide had already turned. When the king read the final report, he knew he had to act. He sat alone for a long time. Every page told him that his job as king was to build a bridge to the future, even if it meant hurting his wife. The papers did not attack her. They just made her go away in the future stories. The king realized that by saying no in the chapel, he had opened a gate that could never be shut. The future was moving forward, and it did not care about his happiness. The tension broke on a rainy day. Camilla found out that a document about her future had been given to the king without her signature. She went straight to the king's study. Her feet made a loud sound on the wood floor. The staff was scared. She knocked and went in before anyone could stop her. The door shut. Now the king and the queen were alone. In that silence, William stepped forward. He did not say anything, but he and his father knew that a secret plan had started. The door shut and the palace was quiet. Inside the study, the air was heavy. No one was there to help them. Camilla wanted the truth. She wanted to know if the man she loved was the one cutting her out of the future. The question was very sharp. Her job had been taken away on paper, but she wanted to hear it from him. Charles sat still. He did not want to betray her, but he had to be king. The silence hurt her. When he finally spoke, he was very quiet. He said the monarchy could not be about making one person feel good. He said it with certainty. Camilla's face got hard. She realized her years of hard work were over. Charles told her that the final settlement was the only way. It could not be changed. He said the family could not have two leaders. Then he told her that William had drawn the line. The next king needs to be the only one in charge. William had not yelled. He had just shown a clear plan. Charles had accepted it. Camilla saw that her home was now a place of cold business. This was not for a little while, it was forever. The rules would stay. She would be locked out of the future. Charles put his pen down. The talk was over. He would not look at her. Just as she was about to fight, he put his pen down. He told her the truth. This was not from the helpers. The line was drawn by someone he would not fight against. The palace workers did not stop to be sad. While the fight was happening in the study, the power was already moving. Prince William did not have to yell. His power was certain. Everyone knew he had drawn a line that could not be moved. He was not being mean to Camilla. He was just protecting the crown. This was a cold but safe plan for the future. William was very careful with his words. He knew people were watching, but he was thinking like a king. He knew the monarchy is fragile. He wanted to make sure there was only one boss at big events. This is called ceremonial authority. On paper it looks small, but it is how royal power works. Catherine watched all of this quietly. She did not want to hurt Camilla. She did not celebrate when Camilla was pushed away, but she was very loyal to her husband's future. She knew that if Camilla's job stayed big, it would be hard for her later. She did not want a messy family fight when she became queen. She wanted things to be clean and simple. The big change happened when William gave the king a secret paper. It said that having too many bosses would be bad for the family. It would cause fights over charities and big events. A patronage is a link to a charity that gives you a lot of power. If the present queen and the future queen were both trying to do the same thing, it would be a mess. The news would write stories about them fighting. Charles took the paper and he was very sad. He knew his son was right. The family could not have two leaders. The king knew he had to choose the future over his wife's feelings. Once he signed the paper, the gate started to close. Charles realized William was not asking a favor like a son, he was giving a warning like a king. Charles signed the paper and he knew that the next day Camilla would be pushed away. The next morning it happened quietly. There was no big announcement, it was just a change in the schedule. Camilla went to work expecting things to be the same. She knew how the palace worked. But when she got to the meeting room, things were different. A private planning discussion is where the big choices are made. If you are not in that room, you have no power. She stood outside the door and felt the change. The helpers would not look at her. Her name was not on the list anymore. Her job was now much smaller. Camilla did not make a scene. She walked away with dignity. She had spent her whole life learning how to hide her pain. She walked through the halls and knew the palace was not going to help her. They were pushing her away with a cold machine. Every door she wanted to open was now closed. Her power was being taken away. The king found out she had left and he felt very bad. He sat alone in his office. He looked at the schedule. Her name was gone. He had protected the future, but he had hurt his wife. A helper put another paper on his desk. It showed that it was even worse than he thought. Someone was already changing the plans for the future without telling her. The palace corridors were dark as the sun went down. The changes were finished. There was no risk of two bosses anymore. The family had chosen its path. The future belonged to the next king. Everyone was standing at the edge of a cliff. They had to stay quiet. If anyone talked to the press, the family would break. Charles felt the weight of being the boss. William held the future. Catherine was calm. They had a plan for the new era. For Camilla, it was a quiet tragedy. She had survived so much only to find out that the family valued the rules more than her. She sat alone in her room and looked out at the dark courtyard. She was surrounded by silence, but the silence was tricky. She still had her own papers and secrets. The palace had taken her future power away, but she still had the secrets of the past. The family wanted to keep those secrets buried. And the woman who had nothing left to lose was the only one who had the keys to the vault. Every night the palace gates close and the world outside goes to sleep. But inside those walls, the story never truly ends because every king and queen knows that power is a very fragile thing. Camilla knows that even if she is not in the big meetings, she was there for all the secret talks and all the hard moments for 40 years. She knows things that William and Catherine might be afraid of. She knows the secrets that keep the family together and the ones that could tear them apart. Charles sits in his room and thinks about the crown he wears. He knows that being a king means you have to be strong, even when it makes you sad. He knows that his son is ready to lead, but he also knows that his wife is not just a queen consort. She is the person who knows him best in the whole world. The palace is a place of magic and fancy dresses, but it is also a place of rules and hard choices. As the lights go out, the story of the royal family moves into a new chapter. It is a chapter without a big role for Camilla, but it is a chapter that she helped write with her years of loyalty. The future is coming, and it is a future that looks very different than the one Camilla had planned. But in the royal family, the past is always just behind the next door, waiting to be found. And so the king, the prince, and the queens all wait for the next day to begin, knowing that the choices they made today will change everything forever. It is a long road to the throne, and it is a road filled with many secrets and many quiet moments that the world will never see. But now you know the truth of what happened on that very quiet day inside the palace walls. It was a day that changed the family, the crown, and the future of the kingdom for a very long time. And it all started with a quiet choice and a heavy silence that no one will ever forget as long as the crown remains on the king's head and the secrets remain hidden in the palace. There is always more to the story than what we see on the news, and the real power often lives in the quietest rooms of all. So as we finish our story today, remember that even in the palace, being part of a family is the hardest job of all, especially when that family has a crown to protect and a future to build for the generations that are still to come. The royal family will keep moving forward, and we will be here to tell you every secret and every story that happens along the way. Thank you for listening to this story of power, love, and the choices that define a monarchy in a changing world where the old ways and the new ways must finally find a way to live together or fall apart forever in the silence of the big stone halls, where the history of a whole nation is written every single day by the people who wear the crown and the people who stand just behind them in the shadows of the throne. It is a story that will continue for many years, and we will be watching every step they take in this long and difficult journey of duty and heart. This was the moment everything changed for Queen Camilla, and now the world waits to see what she will do next with the secrets she still holds in her hands as the sun sets over the palace one more time. The story of the crown is never over. It just changes its shape as the years go by and the leaders change from one to the next in a long line that stretches back for hundreds and hundreds of years into the past of a great kingdom. Everyone who lives in the palace knows that they are just a part of a much bigger story, and that is why they work so hard to keep the rules and the traditions alive. even when it is hard and even when it hurts the people they love the most in the world. Charles is the king, but the crown is the real boss. And today, the crown made its choice for the future of everyone in the family. We will see what happens next in this royal drama that never seems to end. Have a good night and remember to stay curious about the world and the secret stories that are hidden all around us in the places we least expect to find them. The royal family is full of surprises, and we will be here to share every one of them with you as they happen in the days and months that are still to come in this new era of the monarchy. Goodbye for now.